the Ark of Covenant. And the people of Israel made this Ark of Covenant in order to put the 2 stone tablets of the 10 commandments. When God gave the 10 commandments, it was written in 2 tablets. Moses received it, and you know that he threw it at the golden calf and it was destroyed. So God gave him another pair of tablets on which he wrote the 10 commandments, and he brought it down. So the people of Israel put that 10 commandments, the 2 tablets, stone tablets, in a box like that. This is the box. So in a box like this, they kept the 2 stone tablets on which were written the 10 commandments. Why? In order to signify that man, whenever he is with the Ark of Covenant, he is very close to God and he is in the presence of God. So the Ark of Covenant represented man's relationship with God. You see, I mentioned that it represented the presence of God to the people of Israel. So whenever they went for a battle, the people of Israel, they carried the Ark of Covenant. And the Levites will carry and go before the soldiers, with the faith and trust that God was with them when they were in a battle. So the Ark of Covenant represented the presence of God to the people of Israel, and it was very, very important. That was a time when the tabernacle was not built, and that was a time when the temple of Jerusalem was not built. You know, the temple represents God and God's presence. Before the temple was built, there was the tabernacle. And before the tabernacle, the people were moving from Egypt to Canaan. And during that time, God gave Moses the 10 commandments. And the 10 commandments were written by God on the 2 stone tablets. And they were kept on this box. And so this is called as the Ark of Covenant. Covenant means a kind of agreement between God and man. A kind of relationship between God and man. It signified. So the Ark of Covenant signified man's relationship with God, and at the same time it represented the presence of God. I want you to understand that. So, and the Ark of Covenant also was highly respected, but it was not worshipped. It was highly respected because the 10 commandments which were written on the stone tablets were inside. So the people of Israel were highly respecting the Ark of Covenant, but they were not called to worship it. It was a place where God and man could meet. So whenever they brought the Ark of Covenant, it was kept in a holy place, and whenever it was brought, people believed that God was there and man could meet God in the presence of the Ark of Covenant. Are you able to understand what I am trying to say? Yeah. So, that Ark of Covenant was brought to Jerusalem. And that's what we are reading here. So this psalm, this particular psalm, is written in that context. And the theologians say that David wrote this psalm to remind at a time when the Ark of Covenant, this one, was carried and brought into Jerusalem. Are you able to understand? That is the context. And let us see how you will understand the significance of the Ark of the Covenant at the end of this psalm. The last verses from 7 to 10, there is a reference to that. We'll go into that later on. So this is the context. When did David write this psalm? At a time when the Ark of Covenant was brought from the place where it was stored to Jerusalem. So at that particular time, David wrote this psalm. That's what we need to understand. And you will understand the significance of this explanation when we come to the end of Psalm 24. How do we see God introduced? The earth is the Lord's, and everything in it, the world, and all who live in it. And then, for he founded it on the seas and established it on waters. How do you think that God is being introduced here? What do you understand from God? I'm asking a question to you. Not monologue, but I want you to dialogue with me. What do you understand from this word? How God is being introduced?
Creator.
Creator, God as a creator? Yes. God is being, why God is introduced as a creator? The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it, for He founded it on the seas. He founded it and established it on the waters. That means God created all these things, and so He is the owner of everything, and He founded on the seas. Even the seas He found, and He established everything. So God is being introduced as a creator here. God is being introduced. Remember this. God is being introduced as a creator. A creator who created everything, and so what He created belongs to Him. That includes you, that includes me. That includes the heaven, that includes the earth. That includes the planets, that includes the satellites, it includes the universe, it includes the nature, it includes everything in this world. Since He was the creator, everything that created belonged to Him. So that's the first thing that you understand. Number two, how do we see God being introduced from verses 3 and 4? Who may ascend the mountain of the Lord? Who may stand in His holy place? The one who has clean hands and a pure heart, who does not trust in an idol or swear by a false god. How do you see God being introduced? Not you. I want someone else to answer. How God is being introduced? First one, creator. First one, creator. Verses 3 and 4, how do you find God being introduced? What do you understand about God's character?
Holiness.
Holiness. God is being introduced as a holy God. He's a creator. He's a holy God. We need to understand. You know, every Sunday when we come and worship God, the God whom we worship is not an ordinary person. Sometimes we take Him very lightly and think, oh, He is just like any other person. No. He is a creator, and everything that He created belongs to Him, and He is a holy God. He is a holy God. Thirdly, what do you understand from this? Verses 5 to 6. How do we see God being introduced? They will receive blessing from the Lord and vindication from God their Savior. Such is the generation of those who seek Him, who seek your face, God of Jacob. What do you understand about God? 1 and 2, creator. 3 and 4, holiness. Holy God. 4 and 5, 5 and 6.
He's a provider.
He's a provider.
Provision. Giver.
He's a giver.
Savior.
Savior. Good. One thing I'm just asking, one more word. We receive blessing. He is a God who blesses us. He is a God who blesses us. You know, a God who you said He provides, He gives. All these words mean that He is a God who blesses us. He is the one who has given everything that we have. He is the one who has blessed us. Blessed our jobs, blessed our family, blessed our business. So all these blessings are from Him. And not only that, how else? They will receive blessing from the Lord and vindication from God their Savior. Such is the generation of those who seek Him, who seek your face, God of Jacob. Anything else? He is your creator, holy God. He is God who blesses and God who vindicates. He is a God as a Savior. You know, He vindicates. That means when someone does wrong to you, instead of you doing something wrong to that person, God will vindicate, come in between you and that person, and He will fight for you. He will vindicate. Vindicate means you don't retaliate, but God will vindicate, do justice, do the right thing on your behalf. Even if other people are trying to do wrong to you, you don't need to retaliate and do wrong to them, but God will vindicate you. And He will come as a Savior to save you at a situation like that. Whenever we are in trouble, when people are against us, when we are under attack, you know, I've deliberately used this picture. Who is this? Moses. And this is the Red Sea. And they are going. And the Pharaoh is coming behind. And God came and saved the people of Israel. You know, during this floods, many people died, but many have been saved. The stories that you said, you narrated how they were saved. People have been saved. So God is a Savior. You know, the question is why others were not saved. That's the question that comes to us. But at this point of time, probably we can look at that next week. Probably. I do not know whether we'll have an answer, but we'll try to find out. But God is a Savior. When we are in difficulty, when we are in trouble, when we are under attack, God comes as a Savior to save us. So God is a Creator, God is a holy God, and God is one who blesses us, and God is one who saves us. That's what we see. Then, how do we see God being introduced? Lift up your heads, verses 7 and 8. Lift up your heads, you gates. Be lifted up, you ancient doors. Look at this verse. Now you can understand from this. You know, the Ark of Covenant is being carried. When they're coming near the entrance of Jerusalem, the gate is very low. So, he's saying, lift up your heads, you gates. That means you gates rise up so that the Ark of Covenant can enter the city. Are you able to understand what he's trying to say?
Yeah.
The Ark of the Covenant is being carried by the Levites and other people. It's being carried and the gates are very low. So David is saying, lift up you gates, be lifted up you ancient doors, the doors which were built long ago, that the King of glory may come in. Because the Ark of Covenant represents God the King. The King is going to come. So let the gates be lifted up so that the King can enter. Who is this King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. How do you find God being introduced here?
King.
King. God is being, thanks. He is being introduced as a king. So you need to understand, David is looking at God from different perspective. He as a creator, he as a holy God, he as one who blesses, and he as one who saves, and he as one who is a king. King. And theologians say this is a prophetic psalm talking about the coming of Jesus the King. Jesus the King. Now let's go beyond. How do we see God being introduced once again? Anything else you understand? Apart from he being the king, what else you understand from this?
Almighty God.
Mighty king. He's not just a king. He's a mighty king. Almighty, he says. The God whom you and I worship is not an ordinary king, but is a mighty king. And Jesus is a mighty king because he overcame death. And so he's a mighty king. God is being introduced as a mighty king. Number one, creator. Number two, he is being introduced as holy. I'm repeating you. I want you to remember. God is not an ordinary human being like you and me, but he is a creator. He is holy God. He blesses. He is a savior, king of glory, and he is mighty. He is mighty. With this introduction, I want to go into the 4 sections. There are 4 sections in this psalm. And what are the 4 sections? Number 1. And let's try to understand some lessons from each one of them. Number 1. We need to understand, recognize that the real owner of everything is God. That's what David is talking about in verses 1 and 2. The earth is the Lord's, and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. For he founded it on the seas and established it on the waters. So, here David is trying to remind the people of Israel that we need to recognize who is the real owner of everything that we possess. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. That means even we don't belong to ourselves. Even we belong to him. All who live in it, we are the ones who are living in this world. And he says, the earth belongs to God and everything that is in the world belongs to God. And we who are in the world also belong to him. For he founded it on the seas and established it on the waters. We need to recognize, my dear brothers, I'm going to application directly because I'm trying to approach this psalm instead of going from word by word. I'm trying to approach it from applying what is important for us today. What do we have to learn from this? Since God is the creator and everything in the world belongs to him, and even I belong to him, and whatever I possess belongs to him, I need to recognize that. My father, my mother, my wife, my husband, my children, my car, my house, my property, my job, my career, my business. Everything belongs to Him. You know, it is easy to enjoy all these blessings. But it is very, very difficult and challenging for people to remember, recognize that God is the owner of everything. My dear brothers, don't take what you have for granted. That can be taken anytime from us. It can be my father, it can be my mother, it can be my sister, it can be anything can be taken away because I was not born with all these things. They were all given by God to me. And I need to recognize that God is the real owner of everything I have. God is the real owner of everything I have. And the failure, if we fail to acknowledge God's ownership, what will happen? You know, there is an incident in the Bible. A king by the name Nebuchadnezzar, one of history's most powerful kings. And he learned this lesson in a very hard way. He was an ordinary man, but God made him as the king. When he became the king, he forgot. One day when he was going for a walk, as he strolled, he said, "Is not this the great Babylon I have built as the royal residence by my mighty power and for the glory of my majesty?" Look at the words, I have built. My mighty power, my majesty. My dear brothers, sometimes when we achieve things in life, we can become very proud and think, I did it. Sometimes when you take your bank balance and see how much money you have, you may think, I have earned it. We can think, you know, when you look at your beautiful house, you can think, I built this house. You know, we can forget who gave this. If not for God, we would not have them. So Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, he forgot that all were God given. He said, is this not the great Babylon I have built? My dear brothers, never fail to acknowledge God's ownership. Nebuchadnezzar failed to remember that. What happened? He had to pay a very, very high price. But who am I? But you know what happened? The next minute when he thought, the next minute he became like an animal. He became a lunatic. Go back to the Bible, Daniel chapter 4, you read the rest of the passage. He was out of his sense. This can happen. I know an IT person who came from India to Singapore, highly qualified with an MCA. One day, he became a lunatic, literally a lunatic. And he was admitted in the mental hospital. And really for a year, we were giving support to him, spiritual support to him. He was working, he was earning. Suddenly he lost his senses. Thank God. God did a miracle, he came back. We do not know why it happened. My dear brothers, we can be in good health today. Tomorrow we can lose all our health. Today we can be in good senses. Tomorrow we can lose our senses. It can happen. There are people who suddenly are greatly affected. And Nebuchadnezzar, he failed to acknowledge God's ownership. And he learnt a very hard lesson. Because God is the owner of everything. Never think that everything that you have with you belongs to you. You are only a steward. I am only a steward of what we have, what we possess. But God is the owner of everything. But look at another character. Another character. Success in life can blind us of the truth. Success can make us proud. Success can force us to take things for granted. That's the reason success is good. But watch out. Sometimes when you are successful, you may forget who gave the success and to whom success really belongs. Look at this one. Another character. This is the character of David. And you read about him in First Chronicles chapter 29. Verse 14. David says, but who am I and who are my people that we should be able to give as generously as this? He was giving offering to God. And when he is giving offering to God, he is saying, who am I to give offering to you, God? Everything comes from you. And we have given you only what comes from your hand. You know, when you put your offering in a church or anywhere, if at all you put, You think, oh, I'm giving a bigger amount than anyone else. Sometimes some people are very proud, when they give. Sometimes when they give a big amount, they tell the pastor, please announce it. They announce it. And sometimes in some of the churches, we find the fan, so and so has donated this fan. So and so has donated this chair, this table. In India, I've seen in many places. Written, clearly. They want that to be mentioned so that people will remember what they did. Jesus said, what you give with the right hand, the left hand should not know. What you do should not be known to everyone, but people announce it in the mic. I was attending a Malawian wedding. After preaching, they told me, come and join. And then they said, if you want your amount that you give to be announced in the mic, you have to dance and go and then give it to a particular person. Yes. And then in the mic, they will announce.
It's true.
I thought this is only happening in India, but it's also happening in Africa. So, people want that to be publicized. But what David is saying here, everything comes from you. And we have given you only what comes from your hand. We are foreigners and strangers in your sight. As were all our ancestors, our days on the earth are like shadow. What a statement. A king is talking like this. He's a king. And he's giving gold and silver and all kinds of precious offerings to God. And he's saying, we are like a shadow without hope. Lord our God, all this abundance that we have provided for building you a temple for your holy name comes from your hand. And all of it belongs to you. What a statement. Nothing belongs to us, my dear brother. I'm just trying to show two characters. Nebuchadnezzar, he said, I built it. This belongs to me with my mighty hand. But David says, all that you gave me, I'm giving back to you. My dear brothers, you can find failure to acknowledge the ownership of God on the part of Nebuchadnezzar, but on the part of David, a conscious acknowledgement of God's ownership. God wants you and me to be like David. We need to acknowledge that all that we have don't belong to us. It belongs to God. That's what we read. The first verse 1 and 2 talks about the necessity of recognizing the real owner of everything. Number 2, verses 3 and 4, in verses 3 and 4, reflect on requirements to be with the Creator. He is reminding us that we need to reflect on the requirements or conditions to be with the Creator. What he says in verse 3, who may ascend the mountain of the holy? That means, who can be in God's presence? Who may stand in His holy place? Only the one who has clean hands. That means, not everyone can go to God's presence. Only a man with clean hands can be in the holy mountain of God, in the holy place of God. And a man with a pure heart, and one who does not trust in an idol or swear by a false god. He's listing down the conditions to come to God's presence. When we go to church, people put makeup, people, dress up very well, spend time. I'm not talking about people here. Normally people take time. But I'm not sure how many people prepare themselves to go to church. I'm going to see a holy God. All the makeup and the dressing up is only because other people are seeing. But how much makeup we are putting that God is seeing us? And we cannot put any makeup in order to please God. What can please God? Clean hands, pure heart, and a heart that does not trust idol or swear by a false god. What is he saying? He is reflecting. He says that the conditions to be with the Creator in God's presence is clean hands. Actions, our actions should be clean, holy. Pure thoughts, our thoughts should be holy. No idolatry. That means total devotion to God. Sometimes we don't need to have an idol in our house. We don't need to put an idol in our house and worship. But if our job takes the place of God, then our job is an idol. If our business takes the place of God, then our business becomes an idol. If my children are more important than God, then our children become idol. For Abraham, Isaac was an idol. When he was almost 100 years old, Isaac was born, and he loved Isaac more than anyone else. And God said, I want that idol to be put on the altar. Anyone or anything, anybody who takes the place of God can become an idol to you and me. Very often, we sacrifice God for the sake of other things. That means the other thing becomes an idol to us. And so when he says no idolatry, it means total devotion to God. Are we totally devoted to God? Are we ready to sacrifice something in order to go to church or in order to worship God? Are we ready to give up something? Give up something. You know, this is a big challenge. Big challenge. Are we totally devoted to God? Very often our devotion or our interest is in the things of the world than with God. You know, when there is a prayer meeting, many people sacrifice the prayer meeting, but they will go and do other things. They say it's only a prayer meeting. It's only a worship service. You know, God will not mind. That's what they say. That means the other thing has taken the place of God. It's idolatry. That becomes an idolatry. That means you're worshipping that more than God. He's talking about it. My dear brothers, if you and I can go to church, but that doesn't mean that we have met with God. Only when we have clean hands, we have pure thoughts, and we are totally devoted to God. And then no swearing by false gods. That means even the words that we speak should be holy. You know, the requirements of God is so high. Very often we cheat ourselves, deceive ourselves by saying that I'm going to church so everything is fine. No. How are we going to church? How are we in God's presence? Are we going with unclean hands and coming back with unclean hands? Are we going with impure thoughts and coming back with impure thoughts? Are we worshipping our job or our business or things of this world instead of God, but say that I'm going to church? How are the words that we speak? These are conditions to be in the presence of God. The requirements to be with God, a holy God, is clean hands. Our action should be holy. Our thoughts should be holy. Our devotion to God, commitment to God, and the words that we speak should be holy. But God has been so kind, so forgiving, that He has not done anything to any one of us in spite of we lacking in these areas. So, what we do? How are our actions? Are they holy or clean? How have been our thoughts? Are they clean? How is our devotion towards God? Is money or wealth or job or business taking God's place in our lives? Are our words holy before God? So number one, you need to recognize who is the owner. Number two, you need to reflect on how the requirements to be in the presence of God and repent. Number three, rejoice over reward from Creator. He says they will receive blessing from the Lord and vindication. Who are they? The people who are with clean hands, pure thoughts, and who don't involve with idolatry, and who has holy lips. They will receive blessing from the Lord and vindication from God. You know, sometimes we all demand blessings from God without reflecting on the requirements to be in God's presence. We don't want to be holy. We don't want to walk in God's ways. We don't want to please God, but we want to need the blessings from God. But He says, they will receive blessing only when we are in God's presence as holy men and women. Then we can receive blessings, He says. Such is the generation of those who seek Him, who seek your face, God of Jacob. Now here are some lessons. You know, we cannot always demand blessings from God, though God is graceful. But God demands from us a holy walk. And I was reminded, in fact, I am reading book of Joshua, and in this particular book, Joshua chapter 3 verse 5, God says, consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do amazing things among you. Holiness, that means consecrate means set yourself apart and be holy for God. If you are holy today, tomorrow God will do great things, he says. When your ways are right before God, when your paths are holy before God, when your words are holy, when your thoughts are holy, God will bless you. That's what he is saying. Holiness is the precondition to receive God's divine blessings. Seeking, then he says, you know, the word seeking is used there. Look at the word. Such is the generation of those who seek him, who seek your face. So, not only holiness is important to receive God's blessing, but we need to seek him. Seek him with all commitment. That's what he says. Seeking is the second precondition to receive God's divine blessings. Those who seek God will not be disappointed. My dear brothers, whatever we are seeking, I do not know what your heart is seeking, what you are longing for. If you are seeking, you will not be disappointed. If you are seeking him and his face indicates an earnest desire to know him and to obtain his favor. If you want to receive God's grace and favor and earnestly desire, long for it, you and I will never be disappointed. It denotes also humility of mind and a sense of dependence on God. My dear brothers, whether you are in a business, whether you are in a career, your job, whether you are in your family life, whatever, studies, whatever you are facing, never depend on yourself. When we seek God, we are indirectly telling God, God, I can't do anything, but I am depending on you. My dependence is on you. My trust is in you. So when we seek God, we are earnestly desiring to know him and to obtain his favor, and at the same time, we have a sense of dependence on God. They seek God's favor, they desire nothing more than to be in communion with God. Lastly, we are coming to the last part. Receive our Creator. Number one, what is that? Verses 1 and 2. Recognize what?
Real owner.
The real owner. Number 2, reflect on the requirements to be in his presence. Number 3, rejoice over rewards from God. God is a God who rewards us. Number 4, lastly, receive our Creator. What is that? Lift up your heads, you gates. Be lifted up, you ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in. You know, the King entered the city of Jerusalem. In the same way, the King wants to enter our hearts. That's how I am looking at it. The King was entering Jerusalem, and so David is saying, gates, lift up your gates, lift up, so that the tabernacle can enter. In the same way, the King is coming, and we should be ready to receive him into our lives, our hearts. The King of glory wants to come into your life and my life.